This podcast is the sole property of Proud Sports. Our thoughts and opinions are our own.
Yeah. They say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Say I walk like a king, talk like a king. You can act around now, say the same thing. They chasing the fame, they all want the name. But they ain't got what's running through these veins. Make way for the king.
It's time for another Proud Panthers podcast, and I am Steven. Thank you for joining us here, the podcast home for everything about High Point University basketball. We hope that you had a really nice Christmas just yesterday, actually, but we don't have lots of time left before a game with Pfeiffer on the horizon for a High Point University team that is had a nice break, I hope, for the players, the coaches, the whole staff. Hopefully, at the same time, it means that we've had a little bit of a breather to also get healthier. And I actually have updates on that, as well as some updates as we look to complete the non-conference portion of our schedule and look ahead to our conference schedule. These thoughts coming from a direct source related to our High Point University Panther team. And so I will share all of that with you coming up next.
High Point University, the premier life skills university, is ranked the #1 best-run college in America by the Princeton Review. Employers value HPU's real-world preparation. Students love unprecedented access to global leaders on High Point's inspiring campus. And parents appreciate HPU's God, family, and country values. Choose to be extraordinary at High Point University.
Wake up the Carolina way. Hi, this is Stephen Beck. Join me every Saturday morning for Waking Up Proud. We've got local eats, hot sport takes, and a whole lot of Triad and Carolina flavor. From barbecue debates to big game breakdowns, we've got your Saturday mornings covered. Wake up, chow down, and cheer on. Carolina mornings start here with Waking Up Proud. Saturday mornings, 9 to 11 on WSJS. The morning show that feels like home.
We hope it was a really nice Christmas holiday for our Proud Panthers followers and listeners, and appreciate all those that also follow us at prowledsports.com, PROWLED sports.com. You just heard as well that a part of that in the Proud Sports family is the Waking Up Proud show that I host as part of WSJS radio here in the Triad. That includes 4 FM signals, an AM signal, and anytime you can take it with you at WSJS.com. You just punch it up, boom, hit play, and you can take it with you all over the map. We are getting set, High Point coming off of this mini break for Christmas for our final non-conference game, playing Pfeiffer on Sunday afternoon, 2 p.m. inside the Cobain Center, the last non-conference game for High Point this season before we turn our focus and our attention towards conference play. And that'll start off actually New Year's Eve night in the mountains of North Carolina against UNC Asheville, and start in earnest, honestly, with that one. So to prepare for the last game in Pfeiffer of non-conference season, I reached out to head coach of our Panthers team, Flynn Clayman, just to get some knowledge of where we stand and where we sit. Oftentimes, I try not to be a bother, but I'll tell you, Coach Clayman is always gracious with his time. When I have questions, he's there and he answers them, and I greatly appreciate that. And so I thought right now in this mini break around Christmas, it'd be a good time to get a few questions that I had interest in. So when we went on our little break here, there's a question around our High Point Panthers with regards to our health. We've got Cam Fletcher, who missed the game against LaSalle and was able to come back, and against our most recent opponent, where we're trying to make sure that we've got Cam back with us. Now we're without Chase and Rob Martin, all due to flu concerns. And so, I know that these little spells happen. And my main concern was, man, let's really hope it's not just spreading like a wildfire through the full roster. And the good news is, for our Panthers fans, that is not the case. So right now, all seems like we're in order that way. A lot of times, at least from the vantage point of this staff, things like an illness like this breaking out through the roster, it's out of your hands. You can't control it. So there's worse times that it could have happened, especially now seeing how we managed through those last two games with wins, both against Bryant and both against LaSalle. Then you just kind of say, okay, probably as good a time as any to end up having this illness bug roll through our roster. And now hopefully that's just one less thing that we have to worry about later, and it's behind us. Another thing that I was curious about, because we talked a couple weeks ago before we took on App State that we're going into exams, and it was a period there where might be a good reset moment for the team before things picked up in a rapid pace here around Christmas before the holiday, that we had quite a good stretch of home games back to back to back. But now really we are at a chapter closing. And after we play Pfeiffer coming up on Sunday, that's our last non-conference game of the whole season. We're solely focused on that point in the Big South. And this is more so for people that view the conference play and the conference tournament even more so as the penultimate type focus that our basketball team, a one bid conference like the Big South, has to have. So really now things should be cranking up and turning up for people that are in that camp. I'm not always in that camp. I've shared before. I think it's a bogus camp to be in some respect, because we should be thinking bigger, better, greater than that same line that the campus as a whole, underneath the leadership of Dr. Cobain, holds. It's like we're extraordinary. We're not just thinking of the bare minimum and the normal. So for me, it's like, okay, the whole season, the whole resume, it matters. For the one bid leaguers that say, it just comes down to the conference tournament, this is for you. I wanted to lean in and find out if going into our conference schedule, if there was anything really significant that needed to be reset, needed to be changed, needed to be completely altered to get ready for that. And Coach Kleiman, to summarize a lot of these answers during our conversation, because it was not recorded, he basically shared that no, we don't need to do any kind of significant reset. What we're actually doing instead is we're adding in things. And that is something that they will do basically all the way up until even the conference tournament. Throughout conference play is try to add in different layers that maybe they haven't already been doing. Now, a part of that comes on the heels, I believe, of some really good numbers and a place that our team is at that spoiled High Point fans will have a harder time realizing. We're spoiled. Anything associated with High Point University likely has a sense of being spoiled to it. Now, my hope and desire is that many people will reflect what I try to do, and that is to turn and say, man, I'm extremely thankful for this. I'm not entitled. We've worked hard for it. It's really special, but because I was blessed with an awesome opportunity to go to High Point University, now that just makes me extra grateful for what I've experienced and what I've had. And so I hope that is a place that most fans can get to, but sometimes it's just we're spoiled. And what that means is last season, under the leadership of Coach Huss with the assistance of Coach Clayman being a part of that staff, and also Corey Edwards being a part of that staff, and Martinez Rubicus being a part of that staff, and a couple other guys. Antoine Young on the bench was a part of that. So you got some of that carrying over that was still involved with this, but last year was a record-setting run to the NCAA tournament. It was I always called it a ride that I'll never forget, because there was a couple of times in there where we had to come from 15 down, one against App State, one in the Big South Championship game against Winthrop. We almost got knocked off in the Big South semifinals against Radford. That one, because of the championship game, a lot of times gets forgotten. And there was a lot of other things that was tossed in there, like the mean mug of Trey Benham kind of giving up his minutes and starting position to allow for a greater team-wide success. Abdoulaye Thiam played a very much similar role to what I just mentioned for Trey. Bobby Pettiford coming back from injuries and time with the Kentucky Wildcats to go to a hometown-style team and lead a charge of playing above and beyond where most people would have ever given them a chance. So lots of storylines, lots of things built into a Big South championship winning season, NCAA tournament berth team that had chances, sadly to say, to knock off Purdue in that freaking game of the NCAA tournament. So all of that is now spoiled High Point fans. A lot of them think that, okay, we've had losses now to UAB, we had UAB. Now I'm having trouble remembering all the times here. But App State on the road and SIU was the other one. Those three losses, a lot of people are critical during that time of what's happening and what are we doing? Well, just to give you some stats to remind yourself where we're actually sitting today. Right now, we're about 8 spots up in all the preseason metrics this time in this year than where we were in that historic run a year ago. We also have just returned about 4% of our minutes and scoring from that team. So up 8 spots in the metrics with about 4% of what you had carrying over. That means it's been a complete reset and new players, new faces, new gelling, all of that. And we're 8 spots ahead of where we were. That's good stuff. We oftentimes forget that. Right now in the nation, we're 9th in points per game. We're 18th in free throws made per game, believe it or not. A lot of times this season we felt like the free throw shooting could be up and down, a little bit of a roller coaster. 2nd in steals per game. 1st in the turnover differential per game, and this is nationwide, and 7th in point differential per game. This is a good team, and we're on a good trajectory where we sit today with our last non-conference game coming up against Pfeiffer. And these things are not easy to accomplish with the little continuity that we had. Mostly new players, new staff. I mentioned there's some carryover there, but a lot of it is changed. So there's no real reason that the team would need to reset. I was just curious if, because now we are at this break, if it's a natural thing to say, hey, we need to probably do some different things. But right now, we're best that we've been in the adjusted offense. We're best that we've been in the raw offense. We've best that we've ever been in raw defense in program history. Looking ahead, those numbers also all ranking best as we go into conference play in the Big South right now. I think what is most interesting is the idea of the losses that we had and the ones that we're likely to have in conference play. I think what's interesting is looking at those and considering the type of Hail Mary, Super Bowl, biggest game on the opponent's schedule for the season. And I asked Coach Kleiman directly about that because my sense is, and it was reminded to me after we lost to App State. When I talked after the game with Coach Kearns, and I asked him, is this the best win of your season? No blinking, no hesitation. Yeah, absolutely. And I sensed that with UAB having some experience with us the season prior, where we beat them in High Point and making that return trip to Alabama. I'm confident that they were looking to try to hold home floor there. Against SIU, Scott Nagy, I felt like their thought process of how they played the game was not their normal routine method of operation. So going forward, looking ahead, we're going to have that same type of scenario in conference play against UNC Asheville, likely starting on New Year's Eve night, all the way through the season, playing a team like, let's use Gardner-Webb, for example, who has had a putrid non-conference season. They honestly don't deserve to be in the same division right now as High Point. And I will go ahead and say now that for their teams, 2 games against High Point, they will be looking at that and circling it above and beyond whatever the schedule said otherwise to that. That playing our Panthers team, it's the game that everybody wants to take advantage of, do whatever they can do to win. The team inside of our locker room, they do absolutely understand that. And because of the close losses to the teams that we've lost to, that there is certainly an understanding that that was probably like a season-defining moment for those teams, and that pressure only increases now in the conference because all of these members of the Big South have those predispositions against High Point, in my opinion. That's the High Point derangement syndrome. I coined that. I believe that that is a real thing. And because of what it is, I think that the team has to stay locked in. They have to realize that each and every possession matters. They have to try to block outside noise and maybe some positivity that's thrown upon them, which I would say has been less this season than it was a season ago. Despite us having those metrics that I shared that are actually better this season than they were in that ride a year ago, despite that, I feel like it's actually opposite because of the spoiled scenario that I also equally spoke to. You know, we're so spoiled, the heap and praise isn't coming as fast this season as really what it did last year. And then basically the team just has to control what it can inside the locker room and inside the games. So it was a good time for me to catch up with Coach Kleiman, to have his thoughts on some of these topics, to kind of know where the team feels and lies ahead as we get closer to wrapping up the non-conference and getting set for conference play. I know that the game against Pfeiffer, that's going to be tough to have a lot of interest in. Tough on the players, probably tough on the staff, because again, they also have had this little Christmas together with their family, and then you come back and you're playing a Pfeiffer team that, again, it's why are we playing these games? Well, you got to have them on the schedule. And yes, I think in my perspective, it's actually good in the sense that we're coming back with that as opposed to a conference game, just to try to get our legs back under us, and those that were unhealthy, like Chase, like Rob, when we took on Bryant, they're going to be able to get back into the lineup. We can kind of try to figure that kind of stuff back out. It's just, you got NFL going on that day. You're right in between, wedging in between New Year's. I anticipate very little. I don't know. It is on a Tuesday, or excuse me, on a Sunday at 2 p.m. So that does help a little bit, just because maybe there's some people still with family in town dying to get out of their house and trying to figure out something else to do with their time. But it's just, I don't love that game and the scheduling and where it sits and what it is and who it's against. Even for me, who's diehard High Point fan, it's kind of hard to get up for that, but it is what it is. So we gotta take advantage of trying to use it as we'll call it a glorified practice. Figure things out before we take on UNC Asheville. That game scares me. I shared a little bit. We'll be talking more about it before New Year's gets here. And the desire is to also have some time looking ahead and previewing the entire Big South slate, because it's been some time and things have happened. And the whole non-conference that we've gone through, Big South teams have also done, and I already alluded, you got teams like Gardner-Webb that are sputtering at best. They need to really just die off and not be in Division I anymore. You got other teams like Winthrop, who they've had a pretty solid ride through their non-conference, and they had some games there where they probably performed better than most would expect. So with all of those things happening, the desire is to spend some time getting a look ahead at the Big South Conference, and that'll be something that we have for you here on the Proud Panthers podcast. But in that meantime, we just got to get set and ready for UNC Asheville. The UNC Asheville game will be on New Year's Eve. It being on the road at their house, so to speak, it being the first one. A lot of things about it that I don't love, because it's scary. So we got Pfeiffer coming up. We're actually sitting and thinking that we're in a better position because of those metrics. You can't forget that. Now you just got to rip those spoiled thoughts out of the brain and actually believe that, man, we're right on track. Still in a great spot. After the Pfeiffer game on Sunday, jump with us to X at Stephen Beck PS, and we'll have the live spaces, your thoughts and questions and opinions. And I hope that you'll join us tomorrow. You can do it also on X. You can also do it on YouTube if you just search Proud Sports. Or, like I said, the easiest way sometimes is at WSJS.com. But Waking Up Proud, 9 to 11 in the morning. Got some good stuff coming your way there also. So join me then, and we'll see you on the next Proud Panthers podcast after the Pfeiffer game on Monday.